Hey, folks, for episode number 72 of the Rental Roundtable, we had on Haymond Meinhardt from Brandywine Rentals in Maryland, not too far from where I grew up in Maryland. Really cool episode. Talked about his career in the rental industry. So, his father started the company in the 90s, just a couple people really until 2015, and talked about how he was their first driver for several years, their first sales rep, and was on the ground. And really, from 2015 to 2025, grew from 2 to 40 people, and talked about how they did that. And really, people have heard me talk about it's 10 years of all nighters to be an overnight success. This is one of those stories. There's no shortcuts. He did the work. Really cool to kind of hear some of their success. The interesting thing I heard was when they hired a dispatcher, when he was able to go from working in the business to working on the business, how that was really an accelerator to some of their hockey stick growth they've had. So really great episode from a fellow Maryland person. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hello and welcome to the Rental Roundtable for episode number 72. We have on Haymond Meinhardt. He's a COO and partner owner at Brandywine Rentals in Maryland. Haymond, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Appreciate you having me on. It's a pleasure.
Well, as some people know, I grew up in Annapolis, Maryland. It's good to have another Maryland person on. Crab cakes and football. We joined a small group last night with our church, and everybody there is Georgia, 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 and I was like, I'm the Maryland guy. And the first guy said crab cakes and football, and I was like,
Yeah,
that's me. So
there's a lot of
probably get
Maryland
that a lot
pride. That's
yourself.
absolutely true. A small state, big pride.
That's right. Are you a Commanders fan or Ravens? Do you have a preference?
I guess I'd have to say Commanders growing up. I'm not a huge sports guy,
Yeah.
but it was always Commanders. My dad and family members always followed them. You should be Baltimore, but it was always the Commanders.
Yeah, they've had a tough run. That's my team. We grew up going to FedEx Field, which is probably not that far from you. I don't know, within 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, it's at
Uh,
45 to an hour.
and driving down to the beach, I've probably driven by your store on Crane Highway hundreds of times as a kid. Never thought about it, but here we are. So haven't seen it recently, but as a kid, I've probably hundreds of times driven by your store.
Yeah, we're
You got a
very
great location on
fortunate.
Crane Highway.
Yeah, we're very fortunate with our road frontage on that highway. A big split at Route 5 and 301 has been a very popular intersection for decades, and it's helped us a lot with our name recognition.
For sure. And you're good friends with Rob Mays. He was episode 69, so 3 episodes before this. And also Sam Wagner, who's our second ever one. So if they're listening, hi, Rob and Sam. I know they're good friends of yours. Great guys, and I want to shout them out as well. They made the connection here too.
They absolutely deserve it. They've helped me get to where I'm at today. Sam, in particular, has been an outstanding mentor, and he's just a heck of a guy. He's really been impressive to watch, and he's helped me a lot. And Rob, right behind him, very educational people, and have helped me a lot. I'm a young guy in the industry, 32 years old, so I got in young, and that's what helped me a lot, starting from the bottom. But those guys and a few other mentors have really helped me excel to where we're at today.
I'm a young guy too. They helped me out very early on. They obviously sold their company to Herc in the last year or two. A lot of success there. So they're probably embarrassed that we're talking about him. But I think the thing here in the industry, a lot of people know, is like it's very relational, right? And I'm big on technology and pushing technology, but it's still relationships that matter. And I think as you kind of go into different markets, we'll talk about this in a second. You have competitors in your space, the nationals and the regional players, but they're also partners too. And that's not always the case. I used to work with car dealerships. They don't view them, their neighbors across the street, as partners, right? It's very cutthroat. And I think what you see in the rental industry is how community based it is, and everyone generally is trying to help each other and grow. So you've got that stories with Rob and Sam there. So hey man, I'd love to talk about your story and background. So again, just kind of people listen to these podcasts, there's kind of a split, right? People stumble upon this amazing industry like myself and Jeff Van Doggen, who came on the episode before you, and you realize how amazing it is. And there's people who grew up in the industry. And the reality is, in both scenarios, people don't really leave, right? It kind of gets in your blood. So you grew up more in the industry, right? So tell me about your story and how you got it into rental to begin with.
So it started, I was 18, I got my CDL. We've had this business in the family since decades. The family's been in Brandywine operating a couple different businesses. It was in the 90s that my dad decided to start a little rental equipment business. He was in the heavy truck and equipment used dealership industry. His father started it, my grandfather, and uh, they've been operating on that same corner in Brandywine. I mean, well before I was born. But my dad
Hmm.
had the idea to start the rental business in the 90s. And it was just a small little side thing. They would pull used equipment from the rental yard and from the equipment yard and throw it in the rental yard. And it took probably 2 decades before it really got serious. During the
Mm,
recession, things got tough, but after coming out of that, dad saw a lot of his colleagues going into the rental, and he really put a lot more time and monetary investment into the rental. So coming into like 2015, 16 is when it really began to take off. I was involved then, my brother was involved then. We were out of college, or out of high school in my case, but I got my CDL at a young age. I started as a driver, believe
mm,
it or not, in the rental. And to this day, that was still the most invaluable experience that I received. I Driving taught me so much about the rental industry, job site etiquette, how to
mm.
navigate in and out of Washington, D.C., or any job site for that matter. It was by far the best experience to this day. I tell everybody that I discuss this with. And that's where it started for me as a driver when I was 18 years old. And it just, the rental and myself, it transformed. I mean, we went from, 50,000 a month, 100,000 a month to, seeing that double and triple over the course of, the first 3 and 4 years. And, we went from probably a 2-person, 3-person team to now we have 40 people. And it's just been explosive growth ever since 2015, 16. It's been a really fun ride. Um, my brother helps me manage the rental store and also oversees the sales department. And we've assembled a great team, dispatchers, everything you can think of. It's been a really fun ride. Um, we've always had the heavy dirt and a few trucks in the fleet. That's where our roots are. Um, it's been a niche for us. Everybody kind of knows us for that, and we've always done the big dirt very, very well. So, you know, for for years, that's all we really focused on, and we've
Mm.
now transitioned from that small heavy dirt company to diversifying into all
Yeah.
sorts of different types of things. It's been a really fun ride.
Yeah. Well, that's a cool story. So you guys started your dad started the company in the '90s, and but it sounds like it was not a huge revenue company. It was just sort of kind of going along. The recession happened, but really 2015 or so, you guys really started to grow, right? Based on the outside looking in, you got a great website, great location. You told me you guys grew up in the business. I would have assumed you guys have been doing millions of dollars for 20 years. It's interesting, like you really in the last 10 years accelerated. What led to that growth in the last 10 years? Was it just more capital, more people, better people, more focus? Like what about this company was sort of kind of flat and then it really skyrocketed in the last 10 years? What happened at that time?
The big thing when 2015 coming out of the recession, everybody was so nervous about buying. Nobody really wanted to buy.
Mm,
Everybody, the trend began that renting was more comfortable. Everybody had been through terrible times. Businesses closed through the
mm,
recession, and the rental really, I think, began to take off in a different way. I know that it's been around for a really long time, but after the recession, I think it was revitalized
mm,
because of the fear, instilled in everybody through that recession in '08.
mm,
And that was the big thing. Dad saw many of his colleagues doing that, and he wanted to mimic that. And I was at the perfect age. I had been driving for a few years. I was the only rental driver for 3 or 4 years at that time. And I said, I would like to make some more money, Dad. What can I do, to make some more money? We didn't have a
yeah.
sales team or anything at that time. So he bought me a pickup truck, and I was extremely green, but I got out in the field, and I knew the industry very well. I knew the equipment very well. All those positive things from driving the trucks, delivering the equipment, that taught me so much. So I had a little bit of a head start there, but I didn't know anything about sales. I was totally green, but I was able to go out and with the confidence, uh, being within the family, not an owner at that time, but my dad completely backed me. He gave me full reins. I was able to go out and make special deals with customers and be extremely aggressive on price, admittedly, and that's really what helped us excel. I mean, we would talk. I was even still living at home at that time, believe it or not, and I would get home every night, and my dad and I would talk around the table. We would get excited about it. I would tell him all the good feedback that I had from that day, and it really motivated him. I mean, I would say, "Look, I'm missing rentals on this amount of excavators, this size, this type of equipment. We need more of it," and he would go out and he would buy it. I mean, it was probably 4 or 5 years of just strictly myself selling and recommending stuff to my brother and my father. My brother also
Mm,
did the majority of the buying at that time, and it was just direct feedback back and forth. I need this, I need that. Let's make this happen. I was developing relationships all in and around Washington D.C. with mostly excavation contractors at that time, and it just really took off for that reason. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of long days, but it was fun. We loved it, and there was a lot of fire behind us for that reason. So
mm.
um, we added people and we continued to add equipment, and really that's what helped it grow at that time. A lot of hard work, long days, and the financial backing of the company. Luckily, we had good tenure, and my dad was comfortable to do it at that time, and that was really what excelled us.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shortcuts, right? It was just hard work. You got on the ground. You didn't say, "Hey, I'm gonna go hire 30 people and they're gonna go do the work." Like, you did the work, and then over time, you built a team. But first few years, 5 plus years, you were out there, and you started as a driver, 18 years old. I know what it's like. I used to live in DC, driving around DC. Can't imagine driving a big truck around DC,
Yeah,
Beltway, and I don't know, man. That's a good experience. You're probably a great driver, very safe driver. Probably you're better driver than these self-driving cars driving around right now.
yeah.
Um, what about the, like, delivery experience? Like, let's get to the sales side, but, like, starting off as a delivery driver, we've heard other guests come on and talk about how they started, right out of high school, and they started in the yard, they started behind the counter, but they really worked their way up. But what about being a delivery driver really helped you understand the business?
The delivery driver aspect was huge. I can't emphasize that enough.
Hmm,
It just operating the truck, one thing, operating every single piece of equipment. I mean, we had telehandlers, we had man lifts, just on a very small scale. So I got the experience on every category, every
hmm,
common category in the rental industry. An excavator, dozer, roller, man lift, scissor lift, forklift, you name it. And we were buying other miscellaneous things for our equipment sales, side. I've
hmm,
operated just about every single piece of equipment you can think of.
hmm,
And and the biggest takeaway from the equipment operating stance is the equipment knowledge. And when you talk to these people, the one thing that I was taught as a young age, they want somebody who's a resource for them, who they can come to. And I remember one of my mentors telling me and reading about how people want a sales rep that they can lean on for questions, that they can really come to and trust. And in the beginning, I thought, how am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? Well, it turned into the driving experience, the equipment operating experience inadvertently gave me all of those tools. I knew, how to fix a service call over the phone. You deliver a scissor lift or a man lift, and it's just simple operational stuff that some of these people don't get, or might be their first time on that type of piece of equipment, sadly, but it's true. And I was able to make that call, and say, hey, are both red buttons out? Is the key in the right position? Have you ever operated this type of thing before? And and that was huge for me, just operating the equipment. That's just one piece of the driving. The other piece is just the navigational thing. I grew up in Southern Maryland, about 45 minutes south of Washington D.C. I had gotten around pretty good at a young age and went to school in a different county, but I had to learn how to navigate in the truck and as a young salesman in and around Washington D.C. Uh, Mostly in the truck was where it was valuable. I mean, I was taking a tractor trailer, legal loads, permit loads, 120,000 pounds in and out of Washington D.C., delivering it to different jobs in Northern Virginia, out to Manassas, up to Baltimore, and sometimes even farther. And to understand your territory geographically is huge. You have to
hmm,
not only know how to get around it without staring at your GPS, but you need to know who the players are, where the hot spots are. You
hmm,
know, should we be beating the streets down in Southern Maryland, or should we be up in Prince George's County with all those businesses who are operating at the Beltway, serving the DC market? And that taught me all of that, seeing where the industrial parks are, where the jobs are. And furthermore, on the jobs, these large jobs, any jobs, medium to small, it taught you job site etiquette, what to wear, what to do, what not to do. Coordinating with those superintendents, letting them know ahead of time, hey, something's on the way. Do I need to know anything special? Vice versa for pickup. Um, how to speak to these people professionally, superintendents, foremen, sometimes business owners out there on the job, how to get it done cohesively for everybody. And so those are really the three huge things that driving taught me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I almost feel like every aspiring rental operator should start as a driver hearing you talk about it. Like, because what I hear from different people we talk about, there's like sort of again, there's two different categories. There's the people who love the data and the spreadsheets and they've got all this fleet running metrics and depreciation curves. And that's all important, right? What's also important is just getting on the ground, you know, like, walking the ground floor, right? Being with your customers, knowing your territory, being intimately, aware of your market and your customer base. And you were like, "Look, I don't care about the data and the spreadsheets. There's a time and place for that. I'm gonna be out in the field as much as possible," right? Driving around, meeting customers, fixing equipment, and like serving your customers, right? And your first point is how do you build trust? Well, the way you built trust was you showed up, you delivered, and you were there to help your customers. And over a period of time, which now we're now 10 years after since you really started to see that curve, to you guys have a great business, right? But there were no shortcuts, and I think it's interesting that you really just focused on being out in the field, right? And I think a lot of people, I'm guilty of this in the Zoom world here. It's easy to be behind your laptop, your computers, but as a driver, the reality is if you're delivering equipment, you can't do that remotely. That's not a remote job, right?
That's right.
And it does force you out there. And I imagine in some sense, all those deliveries, you're starting to see what customers actually need, and that helped form some of your later purchasing decisions, right? When you're around the dinner table with your father, when you guys were making those decisions on, hey, I think we need to buy XYZ fleet, were you looking at data utilization curves, et cetera, or was it more, look, I just talked to the five customers in a row who want the same exact piece of equipment. I don't need an analysis. I know we need to buy this, right? Like, tell me about how you actually made uh, fleet purchasing decisions pretty early on in your journey.
It was so organic. Some people would laugh, but it was so organic. My dad and my brother had a level of comfort because they had bought and sold equipment for decades. My dad decades, my brother, half a decade at that point. Um, it was completely organic. It was just like you said with your second example. I mean, it was direct feedback from the field. We were going from having two or four forklifts and maybe a half a dozen excavators, you know, a half a dozen bulldozers at that time. We went from that to saying, "Dad, we're out of this, and I've got people hollering for it.
Hmm,
We need to go pick this stuff up." And one thing that really sets us apart from the other rental vendors is we have access to the auction market. We were able to go. We've
hmm,
we've always our my dad's entire career purchased through the auction market. It's always been a leg up because some people are afraid of it. They think, they're worried about the risk associated, getting something broken, paying a lot of money for something that's not what it is. But we had a level of comfort that most people don't. Yes, you have a couple bad eggs here and there, but my dad and my brother were auctions happen every day. They
hmm,
Ritchie Brothers, anybody you can think of. There's auctions across the country every day, and sometimes you pay up, sometimes you get a 50% discount, but either way, you get that piece of equipment immediately. You can go pick it up at our local equipment yard and add it to the fleet. So we were able to quickly assemble a fleet of equipment. I think arguably at that stage of our growth quicker than others because if you have to wait on an order of a half a dozen skid steers from the manufacturers, especially the last 5 or 6 years, sometimes that takes months, sometimes weeks, but often it takes a month plus to get these large orders in. But if going to the auction market, I was able to give that direct feedback to my family, to my partners, and they were able to go source it within 30 days. We were able to add fleet. I mean, and it looked like that for the first. It still looks like that to this day. We're still growing.
hmm.
It looks a little different. We buy plenty of new equipment now, but we still are very confident in the auction market, and it's helped us tremendously
Hmm.
as far as the
That's
speed of acquiring.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I think one thing I've learned talking to a lot of rental companies is you got to have a very clear strategy of what you do and what you don't do, and it doesn't almost matter what that is, but you got to just be relentlessly focused, right? So the episode right before the 71 with Jeff Van Dongen, it's not released. You haven't heard it yet, but he talked about yesterday. He is only buys new equipment, and he pays auto. detailers to detail it, and he's like, "We're gonna have the nicest equipment, it's gonna be new. I sell it early, and I don't have to deal with any maintenance issue," but that's his strategy, right? And he's done very well, and, that's how he's operated, and, he also does deliveries at cost. He does, he just only making money on the rental, he's charging a higher price, and it's very like, that's a strategy. He will not touch used equipment. You guys on the other side, started exclusively with the auction markets. Now you've kind of moved more into new equipment. I'm interested from your perspective. That I heard his story of why he does new only. Like, what are the benefits of buying used equipment, and why did you decide on to start with that strategy?
So that's interesting, and everybody has a different way of doing things. But we are. I think we're a mix. But in the beginning, we were heavily the opposite of that
Mm,
gentleman. And the main reason is accessibility.
mm,
Like I mentioned before, you can purchase that asset and pick it up same day. Um, the other big one is cost. I mean,
mm,
it's often you're getting a discount at the auction, and yes, it's a used asset, but now it's not like it was 30 years ago. These auction companies are sourcing new unused equipment. I mean, you can get a completely uh, unused new wheel loader, dozer, excavator. All the manufacturers, all the privates, everybody's putting in a huge blend of equipment in these markets, and in the auction market, excuse me. And the volume of equipment is ridiculous, and a lot of people don't even tap into it. They don't even think about it. So maybe I'm foolish for sharing our little secret, but it's the main reason I'd say is accessibility and cost. I mean, it's not always local, but we can get a hauler to bring it in from anywhere as far as Florida, Georgia, Illinois, wherever the auctions are happening, and we can get it within 5 business days. If we
mm,
really want something and we need it, we can jump on it immediately. So that accessibility is next to none. I mean, it's sometimes days before you even get a quote back from some of these OEMs, and
mm,
that's not always the case, but accessibility is the big one, and then price. I mean, if we're going up against some of these dealers, a John Deere or any of the nationals, every single item that they have is brand new. So if we're having to buy that same skid steer, and it's not always the case, so I don't want to confuse the listeners, but if you can get something for 20% off, they rent for the same amount. That's a huge benefit. We're going to have a much faster return on that investment than those other individuals. Yes, we take a risk. There may be a bad egg where it has a large mechanical issue, but it's very rare there's anything detrimental with these machines or that can't be fixed with a reasonable cost associated.
Yeah, it's great. Imagine you just sort of explained, why the used equipment is great. It's cheaper, obviously, more cost effective, but you also get it faster, right? So I think my advice for any listeners is like, it doesn't matter necessarily what your strategy is. His strategy is works for him. Your strategy works for you. But biggest thing is be very clear about what you do, what you don't do, and just focus on that, right? Don't try to do everything all the time. That's a good way to fail. One question I'm going to go kind of go back earlier. Back you mentioned how Brandywine Rentals kind of survived through the recession. uh, we were probably living 30 minutes from each other, both in high school when that happened. So, I remember my dad's view of it, and you're sort of in high school thinking about playing lacrosse at the time, not so much about the recession. But I was curious, like, how did your dad handle that, getting through the recession, getting through surviving? And I say that because, like, if me and you are both in the industry for another 20 years, which hopefully we are, there will be other recessions, at least one, maybe two, right? That's just how the nature of the economic cycles, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just how the world is. So there may be future recessions at some point in the future. How did your dad survive that and really get to the other side?
It was tough. I was extremely fortunate at the time. I was young enough and not fully aware of what was going on. My I've heard a lot of stories. My brother was old enough and remembers it. He was working for the company at that time in a different division, but it was tough. In fact, the rental business actually used to be the Brandywine Rental specifically used to actually be a cross crane highway in another small lot that we owned, and it got
Mm,
so bad at that time that he actually had to consolidate the rental store into what we call the sales lot. So I mean, it was close. It came, it came very close to where, you know, there was days where he didn't know if we were going to make it. This is all secondhand information, but luckily, My grandfather really at that time had built a strong business with a strong balance sheet, and they were able to hunker down and really get through it. But it did take consolidating the rental business at that separate lot into the sales lot, and that's really what formed the main location that it is today.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing you guys made it through. It's tough. It was a tough time for everybody. But the other part you mentioned was coming out of that, builders, contractors maybe were less prone to go buy equipment. Do you think that actually was a boon for rental companies post recession, where people the mindset shifted? They were maybe wanting to make, maybe not as large capital expenditures on buying equipment and maybe move more towards rental. Did you sort of see more acceptance of rental post recession?
Absolutely. I think it was a huge boost, and I don't have the
Mm,
numbers to back that up, but I think it's what helped our business excel, and I think that it's still happening. I think it's still the major one of the
mm,
major factors in our business. I mean, there's such a level of comfort even on these large jobs that rental has been integrated as a common thing now. I mean, people are running jobs with purely rental equipment. Um, but to answer your question, yes, absolutely. I mean, there's it's undoubtedly a major positive for our industry. People can get exactly what they want, the exact bucket size, machine size, lift size for that specific project. They can do a project outside of the normal realm with equipment that they may not normally own.
yeah.
You know, there's all sorts of benefits to renting the equipment versus owning it.
Yeah, and of course the predictability part, right? You know exactly what the cost is. You can budget for that, and you know what it's going to be, and you've got a trusted partner with great history like Brandywine Rentals. You know when it's going to show up. You know those guys. So I think from if you're on a risk on risk off sort of mindset, if we're a risk off and there's if you're worried about a recession, et cetera, people are going to move more towards rental, right? So, obviously recessions, nobody wants a recession. It's hard to get through, but the benefit for rental companies is the end users are also going through the same recession and they're not wanting to make a lot of big purchases themselves. So it's always interesting to hear sort of the second or third order implications of different things.
Absolutely.
I want to ask about building a team. So you started and you were the only driver, and then you're the only salesperson, and now your team is a little bit larger now. Tell me about your team size and how you kind of went from a 2 or 3 person organization to something larger. How did you build that team out over time?
So in the 2015-16 timeframe, I got the truck and went on the road, and it started to expand from there. We went from that 100 grand gross rental revenue to two, three, four, five, six, and upwards. And that was with a very skeleton crew in the beginning, but immediately we needed more drivers. I mean, we added drivers first because drivers and equipment, of course. So it really started with adding a second driver, a third driver, and then the entire time just flooding the inventory with new equipment. Um, the entire time we were building a rental team because we were always kind of recycling the sales divisions people, which was really only like a half a dozen, maybe 10 people, a small shop with mechanics, but it was just employee after the other. We needed more drivers, we needed more mechanics. You know, we, I at that time I was doing the sales on the road. I would even come in and make deliveries when necessary. And then as we added drivers, I was dispatching the drivers at that time as well. Um, as it got to a point in probably 2019, 2020, I just couldn't handle everything at once by myself. I had to
Mm,
eventually hire a dispatcher, and that was a real huge turning point for me. We hired a dispatcher, actually from within. He started at a young age with us, and he was just a rental counter guy at that time, and he's been with us ever since. And he he graduated into the dispatcher role, and I think we had our fourth or fifth driver at that time, and that was a big shift for us. We had the dispatcher in place. I was driving the majority of the sales, and we had probably four or five drivers at that time. From there, it was just volume. I mean, it was okay. We're unable to make the deliveries that we need to make today. We're behind on pickups. We need to add another driver. We're continuously adding equipment every month. We were bringing equipment in, picking it up from
mm.
the auction. At that time, we had begun placing orders with Genie and Cabelco, and we had started buying new OEM product in addition to the used product. That was really what it looked like, was just adding specific roles, adding dedicated rental employees, rental mechanics on the road, in the shop, dispatcher roles, inside office roles. That's really what it looked like, was just increasing the people, increasing the fleet.
You guys were 2, 3 people maybe 10 years ago. How many people on the team now?
It is I think we're right around 40, give or take
40
1 or
people.
2. So
Wow.
I think we have 40 to 41, 42 people.
That's awesome. And I'll add one location, right?
Yeah, that's one thing we're unique about is we have a large location where we're at, right there off Crane Highway. We're on 10 acres. So some of these rental locations are an acre, some are 3 or 4 acres.
Mm,
It's not often you see a rental location over 5 acres. So that's one
yeah.
reason that we've maintained as just a single location and just grown in volume out of that location. We have a huge reach out of that location.
That's awesome. I mean, it's just cool hearing the story. That started in the '90s, really 2, 3 people for uh, 20 years, and then all of a sudden, in the last 10 years, you've added 40 people. Right? It's just sort of you hear a lot. I talk to a lot of companies. They're like this, and then it just people could say it's flat, and then and then it just pops. Right? You guys have had that pop. It sounds like one of the turning points was hiring a dispatcher. Did I hear that right? Because you were doing the dispatching, you hired a dispatcher. Did that free you up to go work more on the business rather than in the business?
Absolutely. We got to a point where, the organic growth is great, but we had to have more structure.
Mm,
Adding some more leadership positions, a service manager, a shop manager, all of those things were beneficial. They had to happen. We were a skeleton crew for very long, a lot of long days, and the
mm.
days are still long, but we had to get some more structure for
Yeah.
sure.
How has your role evolved? For you were doing every delivery behind the wheel, right? Driving in traffic in Washington D.C. I don't know how you made it that long, and then you did every sale and every piece of equipment. You decided it was a recommendation from you. To now you got a team of people. You're sort of you're still doing work, I imagine, but you're also managing a lot more now, right? How has your role shifted in the last 10 years from doing the work to probably managing the people who do the work?
The biggest change for me was from when I started to develop the sales team. I had maxed out what I could physically handle
Mm,
on a day-to-day basis with the amount of phone calls that I was taking in, including the breakdowns and the delivery, the new orders, call offs, breakdowns, all the different deals we were working, quoting. I had kind of maxed out personally what I could handle, 60 to 80 phone calls a day. And I knew that, you know, I was limited. I had to I had to bring other people in, and I was watching the other rental companies. I had a lot of good mentors at that time, and I knew that I needed to build a sales team. So really the
mm.
big transition for me was getting the managerial positions in place, but then making the ultimate decision to build a sales team, because to take it to the next level, yes, we could have stayed at that level. I could have continued to have those busy days and keep going, but in order to take it to the next level, you have to have other people out there advertising for you. So over the last 3 years, that's really been my focus, is building a sales team. I still oversee all the operations and the day to day. But my biggest focus the last 3 years is building a sales team, and that's proved to be extremely difficult. People are hard to get. It's a
Uh-huh.
very difficult job. Conceptually, it's simple, but it's very hard. And I have mailed both. I've basically gotten together 3 salespeople at this time, and it's taken me 3 years to get those folks to stick. I've had some come, some go, but I'm proud of the three that I have right now. And that was the biggest shift for me, and that's helped us take it to the next level, just like I envisioned. There's just as a human, you can only do so much, and you need to I needed to get those extra people added.
Totally resonate. I mean, we talked before this, but I started our company. It was one person. It was me, right? And then there were 2 people. Now we have 25, and since then I've fired myself from pretty much every job, which I've had a, and the good news is I've hired people who are better at those jobs than me, and now I just do a podcast. But
And that's a funny way to put it.
yeah, but but it was really hard. And I've seen the fruits of what that looks like when you hire great people and you empower them and you trust them and you incentivize them, you get out of the way mostly, and how awesome it is. Like I feel like it's very rewarding when you hire people and they do a great job and they feel excited, right? Doesn't always go that way, but early on it was very hard to let go of stuff, to hire someone and let go of that job and watch them do it differently than you. And sometimes better, sometimes worse, but that's part of the deal. You got to sign up for. Was that hard to let go of the reins a little bit initially? Now that you're probably comfortable with it now, but early on, was that hard to let go?
Absolutely. It's a huge challenge. It's your baby. You know,
Yeah.
you have a rhythm. You're being praised by your customers. Everybody likes dealing with you,
Mm,
dealing with the boss. And it's extremely hard. And I've seen it go well and I've seen it go very bad. And it's a roller coaster ride for sure. That's in this industry as a whole. But there's been a lot of challenges associated with that aspect for me. You know, you have your way of doing things. It's not like this is a corporate entity or something. This is your baby. This is
yeah.
something that, you know, that I live and die by. It's your living, and it's your legacy. And it's extremely
Yeah.
hard, one, just to find the people. I mean, everybody's struggling with that the last five people, just to get the quality
Mm,
candidates to come into your office and interview. Two, to afford them. The labor pool is tough and it's expensive. Three, to then have them in court, their that other personality, their other ideas. It's extremely challenging, but I will say that's one of my favorite parts of my job has been assembling that team. um,
mm,
I feel very proud of the people we have. There's a lot of passionate people. We've got a lot of people in at a lower level who we've promoted from within. Almost all of
mm,
our people have started
mm.
at a lower level and been promoted to higher positions, some managers now. um, so I am proud of who we've assembled, but it's proved to be extremely
Yeah.
difficult, and it's something I'm still working on every single day.
When I think the most important thing for an owner or a leader, the most important thing I think is getting the right people on the bus and then the right seat on the bus, right? I think there's nothing more important than that. And it's hard. So on the sales side, particularly, you've got three great salespeople. It sounds like right now. I understand where how that works. We've had the experience that on our side now. It's hard to find the right people. But of the three people who have stuck and you're very proud of, what are the attributes or the character traits that makes them so great? Now you kind of learn through trial and error. What are the things that you really look for that makes those three people great salespeople for you guys?
Big thing is with me is communication and industry and equipment knowledge. Just like
Mm,
I told you at the driving position, I'm big on knowing the equipment. Whenever we can, we try and draw training out actually as long as possible in the office. It's tough sometimes, but I like the people. I like the new sales trainees to come in and learn the equipment. Every single day with the new trainee, we go out and we learn about a specific piece of equipment. I personally train them, and that's the big thing for me is knowing the equipment. And another big thing is communication. Pick up the phone, answer the question immediately. Don't wait, get it done. Our industry moves fast. People don't wait. I mean, I've had situations where I'll say I'll call you back to check availability. I don't know if I have one now, but I'm going to try and make it work. And within 5 minutes of calling them back, sorry, we've already found somebody who can deliver it. And especially in this DC market, it's extremely fast paced, and you have to keep up with it. So speed with communication, response times, quote times, you have to do it extremely fast. And I preach it to the sales team all the time, and they keep up with it. Every single salesperson I have, they understand that aspect about it. Um, Two of them are younger in the industry, but extremely smart and have really, really ran with the knowledge that I've taught them. The good thing nowadays is that knowledge is at your fingertips.
mm,
We if they don't know it or they may not come from an equipment background, we try and give them all the resources they can. you know Obviously everything you need to know about anything is on the internet. We show them how to use the resources, how to research the right information, the pertinent details about everything. And that's really what stands out about my sales team is the communication, response times, and the equipment knowledge.
Yeah, on the equipment knowledge part of the three people you have, did they have previous experience in the industry, or did you teach them everything about the equipment on the job? I'm curious about that part because it sounds like it's super important to you guys. Did they have experience prior to this in the equipment space?
Two of them, no. Two of them were
Yeah,
completely
cool.
organic. And the other one, yes. The other one came from the rental industry and had 20 years plus in the industry. So um, he had a leg up on the other two. And he was a whiz about it too. I mean,
Yeah,
he really is passionate about it. Like most people who stay in the industry, he understood it, and that was across all aspects, not just one category or one group or type of equipment. He has a good knowledge on every type of equipment that we carry.
yeah. Well, it sounds like it's interesting because there's debates I've heard is like, for to be successful in the space, you have to come from previous experience. Well, it's sort of circular logic because at some point you have to get that experience. But it sounds like two of the three all stars you have on your sales team did not come from the industry. You were able to find people who were growth mindset, curious, eager to learn, and you personally spent a lot of time. I think that's the thing here is most companies underinvest in training. When this is your legacy, this is your baby. You're happy to go the extra mile and spend a lot of time up front to get them onboarded. Is that right? You spend a lot of time training these guys to get them up to speed?
Absolutely. No, it was some upwards of 2 months in the office every day, sitting next to
Yeah,
me, learning how I talk to people, how I utilize our system, tricks of the trade, hearing the questions that I'm asked, how I answer them, down to the nitty-gritty details. But truthfully, it comes down to the individual as well.
yeah,
Both of the women that the other 2 women that we're talking about are extremely not intelligent people. I mean,
okay,
they really did put in the time. They adapted. They learned. I mean, about something you know that they really had never dealt with before to this in this way and to this extent. I mean, really, the kudos goes to them as well. I mean, they're extremely intelligent people, and they were able to memorize all these different things, or at least to determine the best way to source the information. So it comes, yes, I deserve some credit with the training, but it also comes down to the salespeople. I mean, I put all that effort into some people, and it just doesn't click. I mean, some people, it really comes down to the people as well. It's not all
mhm.
about me. It's definitely about the people as well.
And I wish hiring was a perfect silver bullet, and if you do the formula, you get the right person 100% of the time. There's some trial and error, right? And I think the other part on salespeople in particular, you got to be able to move quickly, right? If you don't have the right person, you have to, adapt to that because it's costly to not have the right people in the right seat, particularly customer facing roles. So last topic we'll really briefly talk about because we're almost out of time is working with local rental companies, both nationals and some of the independents. You've got competitors, of course, but also you kind of view these guys as partners too. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So one thing that's cool about us and our DC market is everybody's there. In Washington, D.C., in the surrounding area, up to Baltimore, down to Richmond, all the nationals are there. All the privately held rental businesses like ourselves are there. And even the dealerships are there. Caterpillar, John Deere, Case, Komatsu, everybody you can think of is in that DC market trying to serve that,
Yeah.
um, you know, the government market, everybody is there. And so there's an excessive amount of competition, which is tough for us. Every one of us faces that day to day. There's all the competition you can imagine in our region. We're not in a rural area. Everybody's there. So one thing that I've tried to do is kind of team up with the other rental houses. Whenever I can, I try and work with, I have some as close as 5 miles away, and whenever we possibly can, we try and work together. If all of us can uphold our pricing and not cut each other's throat, um, then it can be a really good thing. And
Mm.
I'm proud of what I've been able to do with, the nationals, United Rentals, H&E Rentals formerly, and even with the Carter Machinery dealer, Caterpillar dealer, we've worked together. I mean, yes, we're going to compete. There's no denying that. But there's times where they've come to me for equipment. I've gone to them for equipment. And that's been really important for us. Growing, that was a huge thing. If I didn't have something, I could go make a re rent. If they didn't have something, they could even utilize me. The big nationals don't always have the big dirt like we have. We have some of the 80,000-pound excavators, the big dozers, the long reach excavators, all readily available in our yard central to DC. And those folks have come to me for that stuff. So it's been a really good back and forth between not all, but a handful of the other competitors in that market, and I'm proud of that. And I think it'll continue.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing your whole story, Heyman, today. You've got a great business that I can tell you're proud of, which is awesome. This is your legacy, your life work, your paycheck, everything, right? And, I love when people take pride in what they're building, and it's a cool business you and your family built really over several decades, but really in the last 10 years, especially. So, last question I'd like to ask everyone as we close best career advice you've gotten, or any career advice you want to share that's helped shape some of your success in your career.
I think a big one that I learned early on that's simple and everybody's probably heard it is don't overpromise and don't underpromise. And that's not just in sales, that's in your day to day. That's with your
Mm,
management team, that's with your sales team. Be very careful what you say.
mm,
Deliver that promise exactly how you originally said it. Don't go against your word, and definitely don't fall short. It's very important to everybody, your customers, everybody internally. Stick by your word. That's very
mm,
big with me. And also learning the business from the ground up. That's very
mm.
very important as well. Starting from the bottom, learn it from the ground up. Even if you come in as an executive, talk to your lower end people. Know your business. Know your equipment.
Yeah. Do what you say you're gonna do, start from the bottom. You're saying I had the Drake song in my head, started from the bottom, now we hear when you said that, so we'll leave on that note. Hey, but thanks
Sounds
again for
good.
coming on today. Great to see you.
Thank you, Kyle. Take care. Good luck.